Did the win last night secure the Raiders' job for Antonio Pierce?
I don't think it secured the job. I mean, coming off especially a really, really disappointing type of a game. I do know, we had Max Crosby on the Insiders last week, and he's been effusive in his praise of Antonio Pierce. Certainly, there are players that like him a lot. Mark Davis is inclined, just based upon the personality traits and the fact that he's a Raider and all those things, to give Antonio Pierce a real look. But the Raiders' job is potentially very attractive as well. They have to go through a search process no matter what. They can't just hand it, even though Antonio Pierce is a minority, they can't just hand it to him. You have to run a process. You have to do an external search. So they will have to go through that. Look through Mark Davis's track record here. He's always gone since he took over for his dad after the big fish, whether it was bringing back John Gruden, bringing in Josh McDaniels, even though, at the time he brought in McDaniels, they had just made another run with a temporary coach in Rich Bisaccia, and they got into the playoffs that year. If Antonio Pierce does the same thing, it certainly becomes more possible. And they are, amazingly enough, hovering on the edge of the playoff picture at this point. But, you're 6-8. You've had highs and lows. You've had some inconsistencies. I give Antonio Pierce credit for, I did a story on this on Sunday, bringing in a bunch of former coaches. You saw Marvin Lewis last night's there in Raiders gear. Pierce played for him. Tom Coughlin, those two talk like every morning, first thing about the schedule and everything that's going on. Tom was in the building last week. Adam Gase was in the building last week because he's close with the offensive coordinator, Bo Hardegree. He's trying to learn on the job. He's not just trying to win a couple of games here. Is it enough? There's not a ton of precedent for hiring a head coach who's been an NFL linebackers coach for 2 years and held a variety of roles over a handful of years at the college level. But Antonio Pierce also has something that not a lot of NFL coaches do, which is strong track record as a player. He's been a Super Bowl champion. He's obviously got juice. You can tell that right away. It's going to be fascinating to see how Mark Davis plays this thing out, especially because the last time that he moved on from interim coach, obviously the results didn't improve.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the Spanoses and Mark Davis, two of the harder to read coaches or owners in the NFL. So this makes it even that much more complicated. But you have to wonder that Antonio Pierce seems to have the guys in the locker room who are loving him, loving playing for him. And Mark Davis loves these big splashy wins like he had last night.
You could see it. I mean, he looked giddy, Suzy. If you watched him like in the box after that crazy pick six that Jack Jones had, and he's going like Home Alone style. Like, I can't believe what I'm witnessing right here.
Like with the seven bottles of water in front of him, I believe.
Water, right? Mark is listen. Mark's about one thing: is he wants to win. And I talked to him briefly at the owners' meetings. Like, all he cares about is winning. He won back-to-back WNBA titles, which he's really proud of with his aces. He's trying to get it right with the Raiders. Does he feel like these guys who, remember, it's not like he was, fired Josh McDaniels at the time because he wanted to install Antonio Pierce. He just knew he wanted Josh out of the building and then just talked to a bunch of people like, who do I hire now? He landed on Antonio Pierce. And there certainly are guys, some of those important players like a Max Crosby, who've spoken up. But again, you still have to figure out, is this sustainable? Much like we've talked about with some of these young quarterbacks and backup quarterbacks that have stepped in, and holy cow, Josh Dobbs is great for 2 games. Wow, Tommy DeVito's lighting it up. Is a way different thing between 1, 2, 3 games and actually doing it for a full season. We've seen the best with Antonio Pierce as the interim coach. That was last night against, granted, a Chargers team with a backup quarterback making his first NFL start. We've also seen them get shut out 3-0 at home in a completely lifeless environment. Which one is it? They got 3 more games to show them.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.